Hey, welcome back to a new issue of Shutter Magazine. As usual, I've got a Lumix camera on a tripod here. I'm using the FZ1000 today. I'm still fascinated by the fact that I can control it all from my phone. This month's article is all about publishing your own book, because sooner or later, you're going to have this dream that you'd love to publish something with your name on it. Now, the first thing to think about is, what's the purpose of the book? Is it meant to be educational on how to? Or is it an ego book and you just want to put a lot of beautiful pictures and have a coffee table book that just shares your images? And another aspect is to think about is cause-related marketing. If you've got a tie-in to a particular charity or a nonprofit you believe in that the book is going to tie to, that's going to make book sales a little bit stronger, but it also gives you a chance to give back to the community. There were a bunch of books here. I'm very proud of this stack right here, especially because they're books that I've had something to do with in my life. But I wanted to talk about this one first because Don Blair and I did this together. This is the only book I've done that's self-published. Now, when you do a self-published book, you control more of the process. You also control the profitability, and that's important. What you lose, though, is your ability to get global distribution. And when you're working with a publisher like Scott Bourne and I did on Going Pro, and this was Random House, they've obviously got national/global distribution, and the book gets out everywhere. The other thing about the book is, about any book you're going to do, is going to go back to the purpose of the book. Don and I did this as a guide to help photographers, and Body Parts was all about a resource that would be in your camera bag. This was all done pre-digital. This was one of my favorite sections. The book was all about what to do with Mother Nature's challenges. Bald heads, eyeglasses, kids with braces. And in this case, one of my favorite sections is Tall Groom, Short Bride. He was a 6'6" Algerian boxer, and she was a 4'10" cheerleader. Now, how do you pose them? How do you get a beautiful image out of that, especially if they're a couple? Then we took it a step further, and we went to Tall Bride, Shorter Groom. Or in a couple, she's tall, he's not. And what do you do with that? And how do you pose it so you get flattering poses and portraits that they're happy with? Again, this was self-published, and there's a big difference. Now, all the other books I've done were all done through a publisher. And I did 3 books with Bambi Cantrell. This one with Scott Bourne is the most recent. And what was interesting about this one, in all the books I've written so far, I was the writer. And the concepts in the book are all from the artists themselves. So it's their ideas, but it's me putting them together in text for the book. With Scott and I had a partner in this that really knew how to write and loved to write. So Scott and I chose different sections of the book that related to what our expertise was in, about going pro, about starting your own business. And it took advantage of everything from social media to marketing and building relationships and how do you handle yourself in tough situations with clients. The bottom line is, it really was about going pro. But another piece for you to think about, we launched a podcast with this probably about 6 months or a year before the book came out. And the podcast was so good that we wound up doing around 75 different episodes of just Scott and I talking about a particular topic on each podcast. You've got the advantage today that we didn't have with some of these earlier books, where you've got social media on your side. And then one other book I want to talk about, and one more thing for you to think about, I did this book with Joe Busink. This was also Amphoto, Watson Guptill, Random House. It's all under the Random House umbrella today. But somewhere in their system, they had a subsidiary or another publisher that wanted to do it in Spanish. So when you're thinking about doing your own book, if it's a how-to educational piece, it's going to have that much more pull for you and that much more reach if you've got it out there in another language. 2 other books I want to talk about really fast. Jonathan Gibbons. This is a testimonial to Shutter Magazine and Shutterfest. I wouldn't know Jonathan if it wasn't for him coming to Shutterfest a couple of years ago. He told me about this project that he wanted to do. It's dancers. He wanted to do something that would support the arts and the national park system. It's dancers photographed in every national park, at least one national park in each state in the country. And the book is just stunning. And I'm proud of it too, because it's got a quote, a little write-up by me on the back about Jonathan's work. But again, Jonathan had this idea He's been active in the arts himself. He wanted to photograph dancers, and taking a dancer and putting them in one national park in every state in the country, and then having the proceeds go back to the arts as well as the national parks is a beautiful way to do a book. And the book is absolutely stunning. This just came out a few months ago. This is a very fun one, and this is one of my most favorite books to date. And this is a good example of self-publishing when you really go to the max. This is Karen Kuhn's book, or Karen Kuhn if you want to mispronounce it like everybody else does. It's inspirational. It's dynamic. The images are stunning. I've marked a few of my favorites. Dennis Leary. Here's another one with musicians that she did. That's just, it's so well done and so beautifully produced. And then Karen, going back a few years, was involved with Saturday Night Live and photographed everybody on Saturday Night Live for a number of years. But what really made this book so beautiful is that with every image, she's done a story about that image. So it becomes inspirational. Her images are stunning, and then when you read about that particular image or what she was doing that day on the shoot, that gives it even more personality. So when you're thinking about doing your own book, think about the quality you want it to have. Think about the purpose of the book. And one more thing to really focus on that I did write about in the article, doing a book is a huge commitment. It can undermine your business. It can undermine everything you think about. It can get in the way of your family, of your life. It becomes your life. If you're self-publishing like Don and I did, over here, or Karen did, or Jonathan did as well, that's terrific. You've got lots of control. But the minute you sign a contract with a publisher, that's a contract. And for those of you, for example, wedding photographers, you know that once you've signed a contract, you better show up on that date. Well, when you're working with a publisher, you've got all kinds of deadlines and different benchmarks in the process to make sure the book is done on time. That's it for this month. Thank you for following me in Shutter Magazine, and I'll be back next month, and we're going to talk about your goal to be a public speaker, because that's another one that jumps into everybody's head, especially this time of year. That's it for now. Thanks again for following me on Shutter Magazine, and if all goes well, when I hit this button,